Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. The heart of Maplewood lay draped in the golden glow of autumn, with leaves spiraling gently to the ground. The small town, nestled comfortably amongst pines, was an idyllic picture of American life, a place where neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles and children played dead in sun-drenched yards. However, beneath its charming facade, an undercurrent of tension pulsed quietly, waiting to rupture. It was a Sunday morning when the tranquility was shattered. On the outskirts of town, in an old farmhouse that had seen generations come and go, the morning stillness was replaced by a frenzy of sirens and shouted voices. The discovery inside was shocking. A young woman named Anna Mitchell, known for her gentle spirit and passion for painting, lay lifeless on the kitchen floor, surrounded by the remnants of a half-eaten breakfast. As the authorities cordoned off the property, whispers spread like wildfire. Friends gathered at the local diner, their coffee cups trembling in their hands, as they exchanged bewildered glances, grappling with the unimaginable. Who would want to hurt Anna? A lantern of suspicion cast dim shadows over familiar faces. Investigator Daniel Harris arrived mid-morning, stepping from his cruiser as the chilling autumn breeze carried the metallic scent of impending investigation. A seasoned officer, he knew the town well, its rhythms and routines. But even he found it hard to reconcile the murder of a cherished resident with the Maplewood he had spent his life protecting. In the days to come, the quest for truth would unravel threads, entwining the lives of the community, revealing secrets long held in the dark. Each moment felt like a heartbeat, a slow ticking clock that promised revelations as haunting as the fading day. The victim. Anna Mitchell was not merely a name that had graced the quiet town of Maplewood. She was an indelible spirit, a vibrant flower that flourished in the rich soil of life. Standing at just 5'2", she carried herself with a grace that belied her petite stature. Light chestnut hair framed a face characterized by bright hazel eyes that sparkled with creativity and kindness. If Anna was ever haunted by demons, she kept them carefully hidden behind her gentle smile. Born and raised in Maplewood, Anna nurtured a passion for art that manifested early in childhood. Her parents often reminisced about the way she would spend hours on end painting the landscapes of her beloved town, capturing the rolling hills and winding streams in vivid colors that seemed to breathe with life. Each brushstroke echoed her connection to the community, a tapestry woven from shared memories and simple joys. On the surface, her life appeared idyllic. Was a respected art teacher at the local high school, beloved by her students, and viewed as a mentor by many. Her gallery shows featuring landscapes and portraits drew patrons from towns far beyond Maplewood, shimmering like jewels in the business calendar. But meet the vibrant facade. Darkness lingered. Friends noted an unusual melancholy in recent months. Her laughter was less frequent, as if someone had new to the colors of her world, as those closest to her attempted to come to terms with her loss. Swirling questions loomed like storm clouds. Who had Anna confided in? What had transpired leading up to that fateful morning? Though the townsfolk clung to memories of the girl with the paintbrush, invisible fractures began to surface, revealing an intricate narrative that would lead to the heart of her tragic ending, a story that began not in darkness but within the very fabric of the town's own soul. The crime scene. The kitchen was an unsettling tableau, a stark contrast to the homely warmth it usually exuded. Detective Daniel Harris stepped over the threshold. White lights and the lingering odor of burnt toast. A testimony. The sun streamed through the window, casting harsh white beams over the scene, illuminating the lifeless figure of Anna Mitchell sprawled on the floor beneath the vintage dining table. Her body evidence of a life extinguished too soon. As Harris took in the surroundings, details came into sharp focus. Anna's head rested at an unnatural angle, her once vibrant clothes now marred by a dark stain, spreading across the floor, stark against the sunflower-patterned tiles. She was clad in a faded teal sweater, a testament to her love for casual comfort. She seemed so out of place in the gravity of her demise. Now a finished mug of coffee, steam long evaporated, sat precariously on the edge of the table, a chilling reminder of the morning's mundane routine before it spiraled into horror. Crucial evidence lay ready for examination. A subtle but unfortunate detail caught Harris's eye. A broken shard of pottery glinted beneath the light that belonged to Anna's favorite mug, a gift from her late grandmother, adorned with whimsical designs. It hadn't shattered from a drop, but rather seemed to have been forcibly broken, an indication that a struggle had taken place. Nearby it, a small pile of her sketches littered the floor, scattered like discarded dreams, hinting at a more personal obsession or confrontation that led to this violent, untimely end. Harris's mind raced as he noted the absence of signs of forced entry. This was no random act of violence. It would appear that Anna had known her attacker, suggesting betrayal lay at the heart of this seemingly senseless crime. As he surveyed the scene, he was acutely aware that Maplewood was teetering on the brink of unraveling, the secrets held within its borders threatening to merge into a tapestry of unsettling truth. With each passing moment, the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. The town's very soul was entwined in Anna's story, and it was his duty to ensure she received justice. The early investigation. The day unfolded with a somber gravity, echoes of sirens gradually retreating into the distance. Detective Harris had gathered a small team, their faces etched with concern yet marked by determination. The sun, now high in the sky, illuminated Maplewood as they set about canvassing the neighborhood. Each whispered word among anxious residents turned into a crucial piece of the puzzle, unraveling a story that held deeper meaning than anyone could imagine. First, they interviewed Mark Jensen, Anna's neighbor, who appeared shaken by the news. He had been outside trimming his hedges when the police arrived, his hands still stained with the earthy remnants of his work. "I didn't hear anything unusual," he insisted, shaking his head slowly. I talked to her just last week about her latest painting. She seemed fine." Yet Harris noted the slight tremor in Mark's voice, the flickering shadows dancing in his eyes, suggesting worry that ran deeper than mere neighborly concern. Next, they approached Clara Simmons, Anna's best friend, whose face paled upon hearing the purpose of their visit. Clara had spent countless evenings in Anna's company laughing over wine and discussing their dreams. As she struggled to hold back tears, she mentioned Anna's recent withdrawal from social gatherings. She'd been working on some new project, but she wouldn't tell me what it was. I thought she just needed time alone. The mystery around Anna's latest artwork hung heavily. An unspoken secret that instilled a sense of urgency. Each recollection painted a different layer on Anna's life, revealing her complexities, while hinting at a darkness that had crept into her vibrant world. The teen scoured her social media accounts, uncovering fragments of her life, online past relationships, fleeting romances, and cryptic posts suggesting feelings of isolation and anxiety. There was a message from a user named Painter that raised alarm bells for Harris. "You'll regret pushing me away." As they returned to the station with their findings, a sense of foreboding enveloped Harris. He felt the weight of the community's expectations pressing down on his shoulders. They were just seeking the truth. They were collectively searching for closure in a shattered world. The journey ahead would lead them through the veneer of Maplewood, peeling back layers until the raw, often painful reality lay bare before them. In the silence of his office, Harris prepared for the chase, knowing a fragile thread connected Anna's fate to whispers of betrayal and hidden passions. The dead ends. Days turned into a relentless blur for Detective Harris and his team. The initial flurry of interviews had dwindled into a frustrating cycle of false leads and vague recollections. Calls for tips crisscrossed the airwaves but produced little more than dead ends. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, and shadows from Maplewood, Harris stood in the cramped evidence room, surrounded by piles of reports, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, punctuating the silence with a sense of urgency. He stared at the corkboard cluttered with photos of Anna, threaded with string pointing towards various individuals, mundane and familiar faces, now charged with suspicion. Yet, there was something elusive about the case, as if the answers they sought were shrouded in fog. Just beyond reach, a breakthrough he had hoped for never materialized. A lead on the online name Painter had turned out to be a dead-end unregistered account associated with multiple users, each more ordinary than the last. Harris rifled through repeated statements from neighbors. No one had seen anything suspicious in the days leading up to Anna's death. Their alibis trailed like vague silhouettes that flickered but faded in the light of scrutiny, leaving more questions than answers. As the search progressed, Harris found himself drawn back to Anna's artwork, her self-portraits, hinted at a profound inner turmoil that no one seemed to acknowledge. A young woman, so vibrant in her paintings, yet her final creations appeared darker, soaked in shadow and uncertainty. The underlying grief would turn a canvas, vibrant with potential, into a scream for help. An imploration that echoed hollowly in the hearts of those who had admired her work. Late evening, an unanticipated call broke the weighty silence in the station. It was Clara. "Detective, I think I remember something about Anna," she said, her voice trembling. "Last week she mentioned feeling worried about an old friend she had reconnected with. She seemed fearful, but she wouldn't tell me why." The thread of hope rolled back into view, promising a clue that had slipped from the surface of consciousness. As Harris grabbed his notepad, a renewed sense of urgency surged through him. Maybe this friend, buried in Anna's past, held the key to unraveling the tangled web of her recent life. The clock was ticking, and each moment was another heartbeat away from finding justice for Anna. Life still entwined with the whispers of her community. A break in the case. As day broke over Maplewood, a poignant stillness wrapped around the town. cloaked in the deceptive calm of early morning. Detective Harris, fueled by Clara's revelation, felt a renewed sense of purpose. Who was this old friend that had stirred such anxiety in Anna? With a fresh wind at his back, he delved into the murky waters of Anna's past, searching for connections that might lead him to the truth obscured within her layers of complexity. With the swift efficiency of the department's resources, Harris was able to track down the name Clara had recalled Megan Green, a former college roommate of Anna's who had left Maplewood several years ago under unclear circumstances. As he gathered the scant information available, Harris discovered Megan had moved to a nearby city, her life seemingly veering off the radar. The quiet town of Maplewood offered little in terms of leads. Still, he harbored hope that Megan might still provide insight into the emotions that had plagued Anna in her final days. Later that afternoon, Harris pulled into the driveway of a quaint suburban home. The scent of freshly mowed grass lingered in the air as he approached the door, knocking softly. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing a tentative figure with expressive brown eyes that mirrored Anna's sadness. Harris introduced himself, immediately sensing the tension that hung thick in the air between them. "Megan, can we talk?" he asked carefully. He noted her hesitation but pressed on. "It's about Anna." The mention of Anna's name seemed to strike a chord, releasing a waterfall of emotions that cascaded over Megan's features. As they settled at the small kitchen table, she recounted stories of their college days, laced with the laughter of youth. Yet, shadows flickered across her face as she described a recent rekindling with Anna. "With Anna, we started chatting again a few months ago. She was different," Megan admitted, visibly strained. She often expressed regret, feeling overwhelmed by the pressure of expectations. Then the conversation took a sudden turn. "But there was something else," Megan continued, her voice wavering. "Somebody she didn't want to talk about. Anna said that a guy from her past had come back into her life, and it frightened her. She told me she felt trapped." Harris leaned forward, his heartbeat quickening at the revelation. Here was a breadcrumb leading deeper into the murky depths of Anna's life, a potential link to the darkness that had ultimately snuffed out her life. As Megan began to recall the name of the man who haunted Anna's recent past, the pieces of the puzzle began to click into place. Within reach lay the fragments necessary to illuminate the path forward, igniting a spark of determination within him. The shadows that had lingered began to dissipate, revealing the outlines of truth waiting to be uncovered. The suspect, with the sun sinking beneath the horizon, casting an orange glow across the town. Detective Harris found himself back in his office, the air thick with anticipation. Megan's recollections had sparked a newfound vigor, and he painstakingly compiled records on an individual whose name had surfaced: Ethan Cole, a man linked to Anna's past, an old flame that smoldered quietly amidst the damp ashes of nostalgia. Ethan and Anna's relationship had ended tumultuously years prior, rooted in jealousy and misunderstandings, but with a kind of intensity that can only emerge during one's youth. According to Megan, Ethan had resurfaced just weeks before Anna's death, reaching out through social media, reviving old memories, but also reawakening old wounds. Harris couldn't help but wonder, had their rekindled connection turned into something darker? Continuing their work, Harris contacted Ethan, arranging a meeting at a local coffee shop. As he stepped inside, the sharp aroma of brewed coffee mingled with the sound of clinking mugs and hushed conversations. He spotted Ethan seated at a corner table, a man with tousled hair and sharp features that held an air of confidence. Yet, beneath that charm lay an unmistakable tension as their eyes locked. "Detective Harris," Ethan said, his voice smooth but laced with uncertainty. "Anna Mitchell," Harris replied directly, scanning Ethan's reactions. "We need to talk about your recent interactions with her." The briefest flicker of unease crossed Ethan's face, before he masked it with a practiced grin. "Anna, I hadn't spoken to her in years. Just out of the blue, I saw her name pop up, and keenly aware of the defensive tone creeping into Ethan's voice. "You reached out. She was frightened of you." Ethan's expression shifted suddenly, his demeanor tightening. "That's ridiculous. Anna was just being melodramatic. She always was. We talked about old times. There was no threat involved." The detective studied him carefully, weighing his words, while Ethan painted an image of a charming, harmless man. Harris sensed the undercurrent of anger brewing beneath the surface. This wasn't merely a reunion of old friends. It felt like a volatile cocktail of past grievances mixed with unresolved emotions. Ethan's insistence on his innocence was shaky, and the protective instinct wavered, taking note of the flicker of his eyes, an involuntary shift, betraying discomfort. Harris pressed further. "Tell me about your last conversation with Anna. What had she mentioned about feeling trapped?" At this, Ethan's composure began to crack, the confidence draining from his voice. "Look, people changed. Anna and I, we had our issues, but I didn't." "Didn't what?" Harris interjected. "Didn't harm her?" In that moment, something shifted in the air, an unspoken acknowledgement of the shadows lingering between them. Harris felt the walls closing in, the weight of the accusation hanging heavily, as if the truth was within reach, teetering on the edge of revelation. With a quiet resolve, he prepared to confront the darkness that had crept into Anna's life, realizing that Ethan could very well be the key to unraveling the twisted threads of her untimely fate. The trial. Inside the solemn confines of the Maplewood courthouse, the atmosphere buzzed with an uneasy tension that thrummed through the air. It had been several months since Anna Mitchell's tragic death, and now, detective work had culminated in a trial, a significant turning point that would demand answers from a community still gripped by sorrow. Detective Harris sat near the front, his eyes drawn to the jury box, where 12 citizens absorbed every detail of the proceedings. The gallery was filled with familiar faces, Anna's friends and family sitting together, their expressions a mix of hope and grief. The courtroom was alive, but it also felt eerily stale, a crucible of emotions boiling just beneath the surface. Ethan Cole stood at the defendant's table, his demeanor seemingly unaffected. But there was a flicker of unease in his eyes as the prosecution began its case. The lead prosecutor painted a vivid picture of a relationship marred by jealousy and obsession. Testimonies from Megan Green, Wara Simmons filled the courtroom with haunting images of Anna's turmoil, the words weaving a narrative fueled by pain. A woman ensnared in a past she thought she could leave behind. For every piece of evidence presented, from messages unearthed on social media to witness accounts of Ethan's erratic behavior leading up to the murder, Harris felt the weight of his investigation pressing heavily on his chest. The very threads he had pulled projected the reality of a man who had allowed his feelings to fester into something sinister. Ethan Cole's obsession with Anna Mitchell grew dangerously toxic, the prosecutor asserted, their voice echoing sharply. She tried to break free from her past, but he pulled her back into an abyss. When it was time for the defense to speak, the atmosphere shifted as Ethan's lawyer painted a different picture of a young man caught in a web of misunderstandings. There is no physical evidence linking Ethan to Anna's tragic death, she argued. Her tone as smooth and calculated as the lines she recited. He was merely a man whose attempts to reconnect were misinterpreted, misrepresented, and exploited for this very trial. For Harris, the defense's attempts at character assassination felt desperate, but he couldn't shake the feelings of doubt that snaked through the courtroom. The narrative of a jilted lover, blinded by emotions, had taken hold, wrapping itself around the jury with a tenacity that unnerved him. As the days dragged on, the prosecution and defense sparred back and forth the dance of legalities and rhetoric, but it was the emotional weight of lost lives that hung in the balance. The jury, diligent and attentive, weighed the evidence and testimonies with grave responsibility, aware that their verdict would echo far beyond the walls of the courtroom. Finally, the trial culminated in closing statements. Harris leaned forward, desperate for the jury to feel the gravity of Anna's absent child. A vibrant life had crumbled under the weight of past attachments. The moment felt pivotal, crackling with electricity as anticipation thickened the air. When the jury retired to deliberate, the courtroom fell into a hush, the stillness heavy with hope and dread. The community awaited a reckoning, a return to safety, while Anna's spirit lingered in their hearts. A bittersweet reminder that justice was what she had deserved. Would they find it? Would they find it? Would they discern between love and obsession? Between longing and violence? Only time would tell. The aftermath. The verdict came down 2 days later, its reverberations echoing throughout Maplewood. As the jury's decision was read aloud in the hushed courtroom, a pin-drop silence engulfed the room. We, the jury, find the defendant, Ethan Cole, guilty of second-degree murder. It felt as though the air had been sliced open, laying bare the raw emotions of the community, still grappling with the reality of Anna's absence. Gasps emerged from the gallery, where friends and family of Anna struggled to contain their grief. Clarice Simmons clutched a handkerchief to her face, tears spilling over as relief mingled with the weight of sorrow. The prosecution's victory brought a flicker of hope. A measure of justice served, but it couldn't truly fill the void left by Anna's tragic end. Every heartbeat echoed the bittersweet truth that there was no undoing the loss, no easy reconciliation of light and dark. As Ethan was led away in handcuffs, a mix of emotions washed over Harris. He had devoted countless hours to this case, praying for answers. But the victory felt hollow. The shadow of Anna's life would forever linger in the fabric of Maplewood, a reminder of how tightly past relationships could bind and constrict, ultimately leading to unbearable consequence. In the weeks that followed, the town began to navigate the murky waters of healing. A collective mourning laced with increased acknowledgement of the complexities surrounding relationships. Community forums sprang up, where residents discussed mental health, the subtleties of toxic love, and how such forces could manifest in unsuspecting ways. Table talk shifted from gossip to understanding, and the story of Anna Mitchell became a touchstone for conversation, a catalyst for change. Harris drove through Maplewood one late afternoon, the vibrant autumn leaves beginning to fall, the landscape a tapestry of transition. He couldn't shake the feeling that life would never be the same. The town's innocence had been irrevocably altered. Yet as he observed neighbors coming together, engaging in discussions once avoided, a flicker of hope ignited within him. At the annual Art and Harvest Festival, a walkthrough of Anna's artwork was held, her paintings displayed prominently under a twinkling canopy of lights. It drew a larger crowd than usual as people gathered to celebrate her gifts and the legacy she had left behind, offering a chance for healing. The event fostered an environment where love could be expressed through creativity, despite tragedy casting its long shadow. As Harris lingered by a portrait of Anna's favorite landscape theme, rolling hills ablaze with color, felt the pain of loss mirrored in the beauty of her work. In every brushstroke lay an echo of her spirit, laughter, pain, and power. Anna's story could no longer be a singular tragedy. It was a testament to resilience, an indelible imprint on the heart of Maplewood. The darkness that encapsulated her life became an integral chapter of the community story. Together, they would remember her, celebrate her, and continue to fight the shadows that lingered long after the lights had dimmed. Detective Harris found solace in that knowledge, understanding that as long as Anna's memory endured, so too would the spirit of awakening, urging them to collectively redefine what it meant to love and support one another in a complex world. Reflection. Months had slipped by since the trial ended, yet Detective Harris found himself returning to the same reflection, the balance between justice served and pain endured. Maplewood had begun to heal, stitching together its shattered sense of normalcy, but an intangible weight lingered in the air. The town, once a canvas painted with vibrant life, was now tinged with the bittersweet colors of law. As Harris sat in his office, scanning over the case files one last time, he felt the echoes of Anna's laughter weave through the pages. The sketches that had once breathed life into her world, now haunting him with their significance. The insights shared at community gatherings had opened a dialogue that he hoped would reverberate for generations. He began to openly discuss their struggles, share their stories, and advocate for mental health resources, aiming to prevent tragedies like Anna's from happening again. On quiet nights, when the moon cast a silver glow over Maplewood, he would drive past the old farmhouse where Anna had lived. Memories tumbled over one another, sound of laughter, the aroma of paints, the vibrant spirit cut short. Each street corner, each familiar face, mirrored reflections of lives intertwined in ways they could hardly comprehend.